I remember so many mornings I would wake up with a great motivation to have a good number of things achieved and feel way better for myself. But then, something, probably the voice of the devil, would whisper to me saying, "Hit the social media and check out some updates before starting." As soon as I obey this voice, that was how I would end up spending about 3 hours on social media platforms, scrolling endlessly, and when I finally get myself back, maybe because my battery was about to die or hunger was disturbing my stomach, I no longer have that motivation to get back to the goals I've set for that day. Excessive indulgence in social media had ruined that day. A wasted day it would be, and if I get to continue like that for days, days turn to weeks and turn to months, and months turn to years. This is how so many people waste their lives without knowing. Dopamine intoxication is a menace all of us can relate to. Yours may not be social media, it may come in video games, it may come in excessive sleep, substance abuse, and so on. Till you learn to put it in check, you will never be anything above average. Dopamine is a chemical messenger in the brain which plays a prominent role in various functions, including mood regulation, reward, motivation, and so on. Imbalances in the levels of this hormone in one's brain can lead to a number of medical conditions, especially addiction. When a person engages in activities or consumes substances that are pleasurable or rewarding to them at the moment, the brain releases dopamine. This release of dopamine by the brain reinforces the behavior by creating a positive association with the activity or substance so that it can be done even more continuously. Repeated exposure to certain behaviors or substances that trigger dopamine release can lead to changes in the brain. Over time, the brain may adapt to these changes by reducing its sensitivity to dopamine, prompting the individual to seek more of the substance or behavior to achieve the same pleasurable effect. This cycle contributes to the development of tolerance and can lead to compulsive, often harmful. The pursuit of the substance or behavior becomes a powerful drive, driven in part by the desire to restore dopamine levels to a more normal or pleasurable state. This is why you can see someone who would initially require only 2 sticks of cigarette to feel good, but as time went on, he started to need 4, and from there 10, and so on. It can also explain how people no longer find the motivation to do something worthwhile directly after having spent a good period of their time in worthless but pleasurable things. The samurai were a class of highly skilled and trained warriors in feudal Japan. Among the famous of these was Miyamoto Musashi, who lived through 1584 and died in 1645. He was a skilled swordsman, strategist, and philosopher, best known for his martial arts expertise and his work, The Book of 5 Rings, which details his thoughts on strategy, tactics, and philosophy. Miyamoto Musashi's career as a swordsman started when he was just 13, and he went ahead to fight about 60 duels in his entire career, emerging victorious in them all before dying a peaceful death at the end of his career. Among the aphorisms in his Book of 5 Rings, he said, "Do nothing that is of no use." This video shall talk more about it. It must be noted that the success in his samurai career shall greatly be attributed to lots of discipline and commitment. Living as a loner, he was intensely focused and spent most of his time on things that are of great value, and most particularly in becoming a good swordsman. He knew his life and career would have taken an entirely different course if he had wasted most of his time on things that are only of momentary pleasure and no real worth. Our body likes things that bring no stress, and the more we indulge in them, the more dopamine is released in our brain. This is why the average person would prefer to eat out than cook, or choose fast foods over real ones. All of these are natural tendencies the average man is bound to. The more we do them, the more we want to do more of them. Sadly, the love for such indulgences is the invitation of a life of zero influence. If you desire to transcend the average, you must be willing to do what the average man is not willing to do. If we can find enjoyment in doing things of zero worth, just like the way our brain finds pleasure in doing such things, we can equally make our brain find pleasure in doing things that are valuable. A good way this can be done is when we look at the reward in our goals with a great sense of importance and have the tasks that shall lead to it broken down into simpler units so we can make them seem less overwhelming. This is likely how Miyamoto Musashi made his skills sharp enough to become the greatest swordsman Japan ever known. In the laws of habits formation, any single behavior that feels good would likely be repeated, and when it feels bad or regrettable, it is hardly repeated. A child who playfully and mistakenly places their hand on a hot metal would never want to try it again because of how painful it feels. But when he places his hand on something else and an ice cream or candy comes out as a result of it, he is likely to come back to it again and again. You cannot quit any bad addiction if you are yet to identify how it is ruining your life and how far better your life would have been if you are not constantly indulging in this destructive habit. This is the reason your life must have a definite direction, because the goals you intend to achieve with your life shall determine the things you must avoid and the ones needing your attention. When you must have figured out what you want in life, Napoleon Hill called it chief definite aim in his Think and Grow Rich. Then have this chief definite aim take up your thinking and never allow seeds of discouragement from friends or naysayers find its way. Make sure that every moment of your time is spent in such a way that leads you to the direction of its actualization. This is what Miyamoto Musashi meant when he said that you should not do anything that is of no use. Make sure this, your chief definite aim, is something you love to do so that you will feel inspired to do it continuously even when the results are not yet coming and you are lacking courage to continue. What you are today and right now is hugely as a result of how you spent most of your time and the decisions you made in the past. Similarly, where you shall be years from now are influenced by the decisions you make today as well as how you choose to spend your time today. If you want to be in good shape, but for most times you are eating processed foods, you will agree with me that it is of no use to what you desire to become. And with this, you will find it difficult to succeed. If you want a life of financial comfort 5 years from now, but you're always making terrible financial decisions today, spending more on liabilities instead of assets, you don't save, there shall be no difference between your financial life now and when the time comes, because you can never reap what you haven't sown. Always make sure your actions and decisions are in alignment to that which you want your life to become. Through this alone can you succeed. Your time is priceless. It cannot be bought with money. Wasting your time is synonymous to wasting your life. If you do not want your life to be like that of just anybody, if you want to be the one who makes that impact no one has ever made, then you should be willing to do what no one has ever done. Make sure you don't do anything that is out of harmony with what you want from life.